Hey guys, Scarlett here. So for my new subscribers, welcome to my channel. I post weekly videos about tarot, paganism, and magic. And for my returning subscribers, welcome back. Today I wanted to talk with you about the Autumn Equinox, also called Mabon, in the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. And I wanted to explore it a bit from both a Wiccan perspective as well as from a older pagan perspective. So what are we talking about when we're thinking about Mabon? So Mabon, or the Autumn Equinox, this year 2019 is going to fall on Monday, September 23rd. Now the equinoxes, both the vernal in the spring and the autumnal in fall, mark the point of the year when the hours of daylight and nighttime are equal. And in Mabon specifically, we're really talking about the time of the year, kind of the midpoint of the harvest season. So the harvest season started a little bit earlier in the summer, and then it's going to continue into Samhain, which is the following pagan or Wiccan holiday. And Samhain really marks the end of the harvest season. So what you want to be thinking about when it comes to Mabon traditions is, in a large part, they are going to be connected with and associated with that harvest component. So the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. Now that Wheel of the Year with those traditional kind of 8 Wiccan holidays, in a large part that is attributed to British paganism. And that's why a lot of the names of the holidays on the Wheel of the Year derive from Celtic traditions, though I would say a couple of those names also have a Germanic component to them. So it has changed a lot though over time. So one of the misconceptions that a lot of new people towards paganism have is in thinking that with Wicca and the Wiccan holidays, that those are a direct connection to previous pagan celebrations. And it's not really that case. In reality, you can think of the Wiccan traditions and the Wiccan holidays as being inspired by British or Celtic pagan traditions, but there really isn't a direct link. So definitely do keep that in mind as you are learning more about the Autumn Equinox, Mabon, or any of the other holidays on the Wheel of the Year. So one of the things you can think about with the Wheel of the Year is that in the mid-20th century, you had several prominent covens and druid practitioners in Britain that began to use the Wheel of the Year as we see it today. And then with the Wiccan movement in around the 50s, it started to again kind of grow in popularity. And then finally in around 1970, Aidan Kelly, who was a prominent neo-pagan, kind of reestablished the concept of Mabon specifically. So he named the holiday of the Autumn Equinox Mabon, and it was kind of also known as Modron. So you might see those two names appear if you're researching the history, but basically referring it to a Welsh deity that was featured prominently in the legends of King Arthur, and is also kind of subtly connected to the Roman god Apollo. However, there are a lot of historians out there that dispute Mabon was ever actually a deity worshipped by the Celts, and believe that the whole concept, the term, the name Mabon is actually kind of a construction of the modern neo-pagan movement, which is why a lot of times I just refer to the holiday as the Autumn Equinox, because Mabon as a term, it might have older pagan origins or it might not. The history is still kind of up in the air at this point. So that's what you want to be thinking about as you are going on your journey of studying paganism. Now, there's really kind of 2 ways to look at your pagan journey. A lot of people begin with Wicca. That's how I began, and I still do celebrate the Sabbats. I find them deeply meaningful, and they really help me reconnect with the seasons and the cycles of the year. However, there's also another way to take paganism, which is to look even further back. So before the 50s, so looking back towards the actual ancient civilizations themselves and researching what were the actual holiday celebrations that were performed in some of these pre-Christian societies. And as my practice has evolved over the years, what I tend to do is I take some kind of Wiccan traditions that I personally resonate with, but I try and bring in a bit more of a historical perspective. Though when you're thinking about pagan reconstructionism, or really kind of going back to the origins of the autumn equinox, you have to keep in mind that this is going to differ greatly based on the specific culture that you are looking at. So I have a couple examples here. So if you're looking at ancient Rome and you are thinking about how to bring some of those Roman traditions of the autumn equinox into modern day, so basically kind of reconstructing some of those. Well, with Rome, we don't know too much about celebrations during this time of year, though we do know that there was a festival dedicated to Pomona, who was a goddess of kind of fruits and in general growing things, the harvest. So there were festivals to Pomona at this time of year around the autumn equinox. Now, we also know that the autumn equinox is a time when the harvest of the grapes for wine was in full swing. So if you are interested in trying to kind of reconstruct a ancient Roman pagan practice, definitely doing a feasting type celebration with wine would make sense. Also potentially doing a ritual dedicated to Pomona. Another thing you could look at is ancient Greece, where you have a different deity who is commonly associated with this time of year. And that would be the Greek goddess Persephone. So it was said at this time of year was when Persephone was kidnapped by Hades and taken down into the underworld. And then because of that, her mother Demeter was greatly saddened and didn't allow anything to grow, so all the crops died, which of course is what happens in autumn. So with ancient Greek celebrations, they would be more commonly honoring Persephone at this time of year. Now, moving into Norse paganism, this time of year, the autumn equinox, was commonly associated with having big bonfires, and as well as a lot of feasting and dancing in general at this time of year, of course, always connecting it to the harvest. So even after Christianity began to take hold, there were still accounts of pagan villagers who would slaughter huge amounts of cattle, have a big bonfire, and then they would like throw the cattle onto the flames. And this is actually the etymology of the word bonfire, which really comes from bone fires, from the bones of the cattle that would be thrown onto the bonfire. So another interesting tradition that I really like with the Norse pagan celebrations at this time of year is with the main bonfire in the village, all the other villagers would put out their own fire in their home. So the only light would be coming from this communal bonfire. They would then take some fire from that common flame and relight their own fires in their homes, basically kind of bonding all of the villagers together around this common bonfire flame. So I really like that tradition. So if you are wanting to incorporate a bit more of a Norse pagan celebration, having a bonfire on the autumn equinox and perhaps eating some beef might be a good way to do that. Of course, there are many other cultures here. For example, let's go all the way to the ancient Maya. So at the precise moment of the equinox, you could actually see the sun shining and creating this enormous kind of snake-like movement down the stairs of the main pyramid at Chichen Itza. So honoring the snake god at this time of year makes a lot of sense if you are following a Mayan tradition. So all of this is basically meaning to say that Wicca is great, and you can take a lot of fun traditions from Wicca. But if you're wanting to deepen your practice a little bit, it makes sense to dig in a little bit into the history behind some of these pre-Christian societies and see what culture or what specific tradition might resonate with you, and then see, well, how can I bring that into a modern context, into my own contemporary life. Though everything that's kind of binding all of these traditions together is really the concept of the harvest. And you'll notice that not just with the autumn equinox, but with all of the Wiccan Sabbats, and pretty much the majority of pagan celebrations are heavily influenced by the agricultural world. So I hope this gave you a little inspiration, a little excitement as you are thinking about how you're going to be planning your own Mabon or your own autumn equinox celebrations. And I would love to hear what traditions you are planning on incorporating at this time of year. So definitely share those below in the comments, and I will see you next week. Bye.